wasn't expecting this, he says. Thank you.
Gracias. Bueno,
Thank you for the closing ceremony. We'll speak English, so just in case you need the translation.
plenary of Spark, we have planned to take a look back and also a look forward. The history of Telecenter is actually quite long, and Telecenter.org Foundation is in its 10th year, so we have some history to look back on. I would like to invite to stage 3 individuals who have played a significant role in the movement of telecenters and the development of Telecenter.org. So please welcome Akhtar, Badshah, Director of Citizens of Microsoft, Richard Fuchs, Chief Executive Officer of Futureworks Canada, and Walter Fust, former head of Swiss Agency for Development and Cooperation. Welcome. And as moderator, please welcome Timothy Dubel, Director of Strategy and Business Development of Telecenter.org. Welcome.
Thank you, and welcome to the closing plenary session of Spark 2013. As Miriam said, we'd like to start the first half of the program with more of a reflection on what is actually a few decades of activity in this sector. That is, the role of information and communication technologies in the lives of individuals, in communities, and in development around the world overall. And I'd actually like to start with a bit of reflection on my own and the opportunity sitting here with 3 individuals who've played more than a significant role over a few decades in this sector. And it's really an honor when you think about the individuals, what they've done as individuals, as leaders in their organizations and collectively in this space. Not just financial assistance, not just resources like technical assistance, but also support for research and understanding what's happening in how people use technology and access technology. And I think even more than that is really building connections and building relationships, and that takes a lot of effort and a lot of commitment over many years. So maybe we can start with another round of applause just to recognize that commitment and contribution over the decades. Thank you. So let's start with just your initial thoughts, brief thoughts about the progress over the past few decades in ICTs for development, and specifically telecenters and communities using technology and individuals accessing technology. You know, there's a lot of terms. Some might start with the digital divide, some talk about digital inclusion and access, and more recently we hear a lot about the digital revolution. How do you, as individuals and in the organizations and initiatives you've led, view that? Is it an arc? Is it a stuttered progression? I would like to hear your thoughts about the past few decades and the progress of ICT and access. Maybe we can start with Akhtar.
Thank you very much. I think, in 2000, 1999, when any conversation was there around technology and technology access, most reasonable people would say that anyone living under $1 a day, there was no use for this technology. And clearly, within the next couple of years, that got to be proved absolutely wrong. And the reason it got proved to be wrong was there were people working on the ground that were looking at ways in which technology access can be brought to the underserved community, to remote locations around the world. And telecenters or internet access centers, mobile centers, mobile in the sense not telephonically mobile, but mobile with things that were moving on wheels, that were going from place to place, that were trying to provide digital access and digital information to communities. And that, I believe, was, a massive shift in how information is being gathered by individuals. So I kind of look at it from that perspective, right? So the role of the telecenter movement has been to expand this access in ways in which no other kind of effort that was people-centric has done that. And that's really been the legacy of the telecenter movement. That's the legacy of the investments that were made by either companies like Microsoft or other organizations, IDRC, government agencies like the Swiss Development Agency. So I think that we've had a historic role from the perspective of coming together in a group that included these three groups: the private sector, a development agency, and an implementing agency that wanted to really take on this problem. And I think that over the last 10 years, we've shown that there has been some success, if not a lot more. And what we've seen over the last 2 days shows that there is this tremendous energy here.
Rich, how about your observations?
Well, I started with colleagues and friends the first system of rural telecenters in North America beginning in 1988. And at that time, I was the only person getting on a plane with what they called a luggable computer. And I used to like showing people how to use it. Some people were interested. Some people were angry that I was being a little bit too immodest and using this big machine where it didn't belong. But the point is that there was a small minority of people doing this, and the people doing this saw it as being crucial to their livelihoods and their futures in ways that many leaders in public policy did not yet understand, many politicians did not yet understand, and they were a minority. And some of them are here, some of them have gone on to bigger and better things, but the telecenters were among the first responses to the fact that the early information economy was not going to favor them, was not going to provide them with skills, the opportunities were going to go to other places, and they didn't want that to happen. I remember that we measured success of our first telecenter back in 1989 when the local Holiday Inn decided to install telephone jacks in its telephones so people staying there could do their email. This was one of those unobtrusive measures that told us something was changing. People were now making decisions to allow dial-up access to the internet, and that meant that this was going to take off. So, Tim, you asked how the progression has been. I think it's been like a helix. You make fast progress and then you step back a bit. The 10 years of beginning in 1999, of the Dot Force, of the World Summit on the Information Society, of the UN ICT Task Force, was a very special time. The major players were paying attention, and important leaders like Akhtar and Walter could get their institutions to pay attention. And they did, and we were able to help create a multi-stakeholder partnership called telecenter.org, and I'm personally very glad we did.
Great. Walter, your thoughts?
Thank you. Thank you for being here. When I met the first time the two gentlemen, I could read their minds. Akhtar, once in his lifetime, he wanted to become president. Richard, he wanted to be successful to play more golf. So I said, let's go ahead.
Thank you.
Your dreams have come true.
Joking. Joking. I mean, for me, 1997 was an eye-opener when we had this Global Knowledge Conference in Canada. Knowledge for development, knowledge of development. And then, obviously, the whole issue was how to get access to information, and information that turns over time into knowledge. Knowledge as being one of the only resources growing the more you use it. And obviously the answer was a technical one. Get connected, afford connection, and how are we going to use that? How are we going to do it? Then we had this WSIS coming up, and I was invited to a kind of a brainstorming meeting, and I was completely alone to be willing to put ICT 4D on the political agenda. And I did not give in or give up. And at the end, I said, yeah, okay, if you do not want to put it on the agenda, I'm going to organize with partners an ICT 4D platform to showcase solutions for actors in development, but also for countries and the economy in developing countries. And we did that with the Global Knowledge Partnership and others, about 200 companies and about 150 workshops organized. I never get an okay, but I never got the no. That means you have to do it, but you have to bear the responsibility and you have to carry the cost. Fortunately, we did it, and out of that became, let's say, a degree of higher attention, and that WSIS 2, and in between, Richard came, and he probably put a certain emphasis on finding other partners. He might convince his own institution to go ahead. So I was convinced that we need to use that access to knowledge. I met young people in Africa. They told me, we have arranged to live in poverty. We know how that is going, but never ever we will accept to be disrupted from access to information. Don't do that. So computer literacy was an issue, access to information, then networking, learning the practical use of these technologies, but always using it as a tool for another end. So that is how it started, and that's how it continued. And I'm very happy to see what came out of it, and especially now being aware that even in Europe, telecenters.org found good recipients, and in Spain especially, and probably our Spanish friends are looking further ahead in Europe than others do, because they use the telecenters as societal enabler and a mover going beyond what originally was the concept, and that is wonderful.
Yeah. And at least two of you mentioned the importance of gatherings, whether it be WSIS or global knowledge gatherings over the course of a longer period of time. And that's just something to park, and I think for us to think about, you know, an event which is one of the objectives of Spark is to continue to build those connections, and we'll ask for your feedback on the event here specifically in a few minutes. But before we do that, I know many of us are familiar with the movement, and of course many of us are working with or connected in some way to telecenter.org or to one of the regional telecenter networks which make up the organization. And just as a bit of a piece of history, you know, you were all there at the founding, as you mentioned. Does anyone have an interesting story about the actual conception of telecenter.org?
I have three quick
Without
ones.
telling too many secrets here, or?
I got a call in February of 2004 from this gentleman, and I had never met him. And he called me. He had just started his job at Microsoft, and he said, "Richard, I would like to ask IDRC and you to host with us the Global Community Tele-Learning Center Initiative." And I said to him, yes. I said to myself, we got to change the name. So one night, Akhtar and I were actually in Chennai doing something that happened to involve telecenters, and I was jet-lagged. And I woke up at 3 o'clock in the morning, but this problem with the name of the Global Tele-Learning Support Initiative was bothering me, and I woke up with jet lag. And I had registered the domain name telecenter.org in 1994, just because I'm a bit of a cyber squatter and I like to do that. And I woke up from my jet lag, and my mind went telecenter.org Amazon.com. Amazon.com, telecenter.org. And in the startup process, there had been marketing consultants hired to tell us what the name of this should be. And so I kind of was quick to consult my colleague and to kind of start market testing telecenter.org, and that's how it got its name. My last little anecdote was I had breakfast with Walter in Cairo once, and I had never really had a proper conversation with Walter, and I felt very blessed that he would be able to share breakfast with me. So he cut right to the chase. He said, "Richard, how much money do you want us to put into this?" And I said, $5 million, Walter. And he said, "Well, Richard, how much is IDRC putting in?" I said, "Oh, $5 million, Walter," but that wasn't quite true. IDRC had agreed to put in $1 million for 1 year. So when I got back to the office, I said to my bosses, "Well, the Swiss are going to put $5 million in, we have to do the same." So the budget went up at breakfast $10 million.
He told me that.
Any other stories?
I mean, I think that it's hard when you are a company to come in and try and form a partnership. And especially when you are looking at development agencies, government agencies, everybody looks at you with suspicion. What's in it for you? What are you going to sell to these poor people? And how much money are you going to make? So the first thing, we did, and Richard and his team, was to draw up a code of principles. That this is how we would function as a partner. That it was going to be an inclusive group, and it was not just going to be talking about technology, but it was really focused on people. And I think that was a very interesting sell for me in the company, because it meant that we, as a company, would also interact with the open source community, would also interact with other communities. And there were lots of times when I got a note from my chairman and CEO at that time, because Bill was still the CEO at that time, saying, "What the heck are you doing? These guys that we fund are talking about open source." And it was an interesting learning opportunity for all of us that allowed us to play in a field which, we think has brought a lot of benefits. And we did it by playing together rather than creating our own little fields that we wanted to play our own little game. And I think that's the interesting part that comes about when you get the opportunity to sit and learn. And for a company, at times, it's actually quite difficult to do so.
And just as a side comment, well, you were being pinged by your CEO, Bill Gates. I was being pinged by the open source people. Right. Why are you playing with Darth Vader? Why would you talk to Microsoft?
Exactly.
So the foundation is now, Walter, I'm sorry, were you going to say something?
No, I think it was very decisive to choose the multi-stakeholder approach.
Yes.
And for me, it was decisive to break out of the so-called mainstream development thing. As head of one of those agencies, I was the only one having been working before in the private sector. Yeah. And they were so much afraid of any kind of cooperation with the private sector. But even in my case, I had to justify that they engaged public money as a kind of social venture capital to the Finance Commission in Parliament and to many other partners, saying, "Are you crazy to give money to Microsoft? These people have enough money. They should pay for the whole." And I said, "Yeah, but partnership starts where you have common interest, where you have mutual trust, and where you share things." So it is a venture, a capital investment into a venture. And I always considered my role as being a social venture capitalist in the sense of risking money and, of course, standing up in case we would fail. That is what was needed, and that, I think, made it possible because Richard was thinking very much alike, and he had also a past in the private sector. And Akhtar, we knew that when a partner like Microsoft is behind the idea, he's an amazing catalysator with plus and cons at that given time.
Yeah, I think it's fair to say that you broke the mold and took a big risk in forming a partnership and made a big contribution. Specifically, the telecenter.org is now entering its 10th year, so it's not a baby anymore. Any observations on what have been some significant achievements and reflections on the model that was set out at the beginning in terms of capacity building and a network and network of network approaches? And what have been some of the challenges, not necessarily to the organization, but to the movement overall?
Well, we essentially, when we started telecenter.org together, we wanted to do at least three things. Number one, we wanted to be historical, not ahistorical. We did not want to replace all the networks that were already there. We wanted to support them and help them be more successful. I think we have done that. I don't think we have tried to jump over, around, or through any of the networks. We tried to empower them to become part of a broader initiative and approach. We wanted to elevate everyone's ship higher in the water, not just one or two. So we wanted to be horizontal in how we affected the future for telecenters. We wanted to, in a way, rehabilitate the word telecenter. It had gone into disuse and disarray, and I think it has a much healthier, more sustainable and successful meaning now than it had 15 to 20 years ago. And we wanted to create a home space, both humanly and online, for telecenters, with, again, not replacing what was already out there. I think we've done some of those things. And I met a fellow here who I had never met before. His name is Peter Balaba. I don't know if he's in the auditorium. And he gave me his business card. And he is the program manager of the Nakaseke, Uganda Telecenter. I was the consultant at the time that was hired by UNESCO to go to Nakaseke, Uganda, among other places, to decide where should the first telecenter in East Africa be located and who should be its sponsor. We had a choice between a private university run by Belgian priests or this absolutely abjectly poor, horrified by genocide community, where in the center of town was a water pump, solar operated, and a memorial building with 1,200 skulls in it due to the genocide of Idi Amin's forces leading. It was the poorest place I'd ever been. We chose and recommended that we put it there and not with the private college. And I'm happy to report that despite that everyone said, this can't work, this won't work, this is not sustainable, Peter Balaba now manages a telecenter that has wireless access with connections to the regional hospital, the vocational school, the county administration. They're installing an ATM at the telecenter because people don't want to go down the road, this little kind of narrow dirt path, about 40 minutes on their bicycles to go to the bank. They'll now be able to go to the telecenter to do this. So the moral of the story is people who want to get this done can get it done, invest in that, and they will succeed.
Great. Other thoughts, Walter?
Walter.
Sure.
Yeah, I think the big, looking back, the big thing was that we were choosing an open beginning and not the too close beginning. That means you give space, you give place to different ideas, and obviously when you have to struggle for survival and to start something new, very often inventions or even innovation are born out of a kind of a scarcity to survive or the need to go forward. And I think when we look now what came out of these telecenters, I'm still amazed how many different approaches were showing success and how many different people working on it with different philosophies, but still having a certain common intention, were practically leading to further success. It was pretty clear that there was a choice between communication, between computers, but suddenly after that the whole M approach showed up with lower computer density in developing countries, that the mobile phone density was exponentially exploding, and that was another challenge. But I can imagine that for most of the telecenters, the whole issue on how to organize access, how to organize use, how to support skills development, whether to go into financial activities or not, that those questions can become important aspects for the future. But it also became pretty clear, beside the giving access to handling technology, it was obvious that, as we can see it now in Telecenters Europe, to really mobilize society in an information age is incredibly important, as in many societies you see these associative structures disappearing. And here is a full new ground or a platform to come in and to do extremely valuable work. So this whole of inclusion, and to make it over the generational gaps accessible to be part of that society is incredible. Probably also the contribution for young people to become more knowledgeable or competent in dealing with medias. I've experienced how important now ethics do become. The whole values behind this information communication technologies are of utmost importance. But at the end, you have to survive, and in order to survive, you have to be innovative. And let's hope that Telecenters organization worldwide, they continue to exchange what are good ways, in what context, and how things work. And I only commend to the present stars working in these networks, never give up. Believe in what you do in what you believe.
Great.
Just two quick thoughts. I mean, and I agree with what has been said, so I won't repeat that. First, I've been just completely surprised with the diversity of approaches. And you saw that on the stage today when we started giving out the prizes. With telecenters operating in a remote location in Sarawak, which is in Borneo, Malaysia, and Sri Lanka, to Russia, to the Philippines, to, Ecuador, Bolivia. So just this vast spread, and people doing different things and achieving different things with those centers is amazing. And when you look at what is happening in Spain, it's all about economic empowerment and using it to economic empowerment. In some cases, it was protecting the culture and language. So you had this amazing diversity, which I think was just, one of the best things that has happened. And the second thing is that it has unleashed local innovation, and which we don't even know how much of it has been done. I mean, I think some is now being reported out. If some of you were in the breakout session yesterday on metrics and reporting and the success, and you're now seeing that how valuable these centers are for the community, and the value it brings to the community and to these individuals, and what these individuals are learning through these centers, and how they are then going out and making a difference in the world. So I think those are the two things that for me, have been things on the ground that mattered most.
Perfect, and I think, I didn't ask you to do this, but you actually all three underscored the three main themes of Spark: people, innovation, and sustainability. In particular, innovation, and I think innovation can be an overused word nowadays in the media, but looking back on the 10 years and more that you've been supporting this, it's clear that there is an impact on innovation in communities through telecenters around the world. We're getting a time signal here, and we do have a few things to do, so I'm going to ask one final question. Just your thoughts on Spark. Did Spark anything new for you, or what do you see happening after Spark? Why don't we start with Akhtar again and come back? Sorry, Rich.
I wasn't sure that the spark was going to spark. And when I came in on Monday evening, I wasn't sure that there was going to be a spark. Tuesday morning, it was sparking. And it was sparking this afternoon. And I think that what it showed me and to many of us is that irrespective of the fact that you've got all of these technologies that allows people to communicate and network and exchange information, when you bring a diverse group of people together and put them in an interesting format and give them different opportunities to interact, they do so, and they do so in an extremely good way. So I think it's been a great success.
Rich?
I think it sparked, and I think it buzzed. You couldn't help but go upstairs and not hear the buzz, and you know right away if it's buzzing, it's good and it's working. And I think we're glad we did this in partnership with the folks in Andalusia and Spain. Juan Francisco was insistent and encouraging and saying, let's do this together. Well, it helps to do it together because we learn more stuff. I was listening to Matthias and wishing I had his really cool red sneakers on, and I was watching him go from his 4 balls on the slide: appropriation to adoption to implementation to transformation. Well, that paradigm has been around for a while, but that distance is shortening and speeding up. So we need to be in each of those slots in our telecenters to help them be part of that fast-moving helix that is building up steam and energy. And appreciation to our Spanish colleagues for hosting this with us, and yes, it sparked.
Right. Walter?
A sparkling experience.
Oh.
I like sparkling things, even in my old age.
We'll call the next one Bling or something like that.
No. But you choose the right theme. Innovation is the future, and we need in Europe, in other regions of the world, we need to create a culture of innovation. We need to build up and rethink the ecosystem on innovation. And you can be a spearhead in doing so, and I can only congratulate you. One is growing old when one is not anymore enjoying the future. I can tell you I enjoy the future very, very much.
All right. Great, thank you. And thank you all. We do have one more thing planned with this opportunity to have you on stage. And I think Akhtar has some words to share.
So, before we do that, people give me notes and people give me instructions, then I throw them all out. So I'll do things my way. And let me first of all, I was told this is my last opportunity to thank everybody. So I'm just going to do that and take the time to do that. First of all, I think these two gentlemen who are sitting right in front, Juan Francisco and Miguel Ramia, they were just phenomenal in putting this together, including Tim Dubel, who did the agenda and pulled the event together for us. I really would like to appreciate them, so please give them a round of applause. These things don't happen on their own. There is a huge group of people that come together to make it possible. So the staff, from the local staff, the volunteers that were out there, the telecenter or all foundation staff, the city, all of it made it possible. So, I want my appreciation, for their work. The National Information Society Agency of Korea, Telecenter Europe, especially our partners and local partners, Guadal Info, Consulco Fernandez de la Roes, the great city of Andalusia, the great city of Granada, the Junta de Andalusia. These were all just, fantastic. And to come to visit Granada and get a chance to experience the Alhambra is, I think, is just amazing. There are a couple of other people that I want to just recognize. Ed Bass, which did the design, the overall production, BS Europe for the production itself, the Palacio de la Congress for the venue, La Borraja for the meals and reception, and Agora Reviews for getting the word out. But, there's one other person that I would like to recognize here. There are millions of telecenters around the world. David Garcia is a telecenter operator in Guadalinfo, who also operates EdBus, an organization that is dedicated to bringing these types of events to the community. David, can you please come out for a well-deserved round of recognition, please?
Thanks so much.
David, thank you very much for this amazing event that you put together and the production. Really appreciate it. Thank you. And for the work that you do with the Telecenter organization here. Congratulations. Now there are two people who represent the past on this stage. There's one that represents the future. I'm also the good-looking one. But jokes aside, I do want to recognize my two colleagues, Richard Fuchs. The Telecenter movement resonates with the work that he's done. You cannot go anywhere in the world without knowing that the telecenters exist because of the pioneering work that he did 2 decades ago. That he was out there making a difference, understanding the technology, understanding the vision and the power of that technology, and he brought that opportunity to all of us. It was no coincidence and no accident that I picked up the phone and called him. Even though he didn't know me, I knew his work, and I wanted to make sure that he was part of this movement. So please join me in recognizing Richard Fuchs for the fantastic work that he's done. And I would like to give him a small token of appreciation, and that he will remember that telecenter.org was something that he started 2 decades ago.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Just one quick comment, if you don't mind.
Please do.
To my telecenter colleagues, a colleague and friend who once said, if you're 1 step ahead, you're a pioneer. If you're 1 step ahead, you're a leader. 2 steps ahead, you're a pioneer. 3 steps ahead, you're a martyr, because as they kind of adopt what you're trying to do, they will run over you on the way to adopting your innovation. But you can be 4 steps ahead, and you can avoid their slings and arrows at your back, and you can be successful and be fast and create an environment of innovation. So my telecenter colleagues, be 4 steps ahead.
Thank you. As much as you need a visionary to make a movement possible, you also need a statesman. Because a statesman actually takes the vision and helps rally people around that vision and helps you move forward. Walter Fust is a statesman. He's always played that role. He's been a statesman for the underserved community, irrespective of where you are. Walter is able to take on an idea, put it into a format, convince people, build an organization around it, support others so that they can succeed. And Walter has played an enormous role in the success of the telecenter movement. So Walter, on behalf of the foundation, we want to recognize you and give you a small token of our appreciation.
Thank you for your sparkling address.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Well, we are I don't know how many minutes over, but thank you all very much. And, you know, we have one more last closing session so that we can talk about the future of the telecenter movement. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you all. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you. Now I would like to share a video with you by Laszlo Andor, the Commissioner for Employment, Social Affairs and Inclusion of the European Commission. So let's listen to the video.
Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to thank all of you for your active participation in Spark 2013, the fourth Global Forum on Telecenters, which is being celebrated for the first time in Europe. You represent the global community of technology centers, a community led forward by the ideals of digital inclusion, professional training, and social development through ICT. With your efforts, you are impacting the lives of millions of people every day throughout the world. You are opening a number of opportunities for individuals in terms of information, education, business, and employment. The European Commission is very focused on supporting job creation, and we are confident that the work of telecenters will continue contributing towards this goal. The digital economy creates many job opportunities. Over 4 million Europeans work as ICT practitioners in the narrowest definition, which means programmers and computer assistant staff. The demand for ICT practitioners has continued to grow even during the crisis, and we expect above-average job creation in this area also during the coming decade, both in the ICT industry and in the user industries. However, this growth will not be possible to achieve if there are not enough skilled professionals to meet the growing demand. Skill gaps in the digital economy are still evident, especially in high-level job-specific skills of ICT professionals. Recent calculations predict up to 900,000 unfilled ICT vacancies by 2015. The public and private sector have to work together as much as possible so that we fill these vacancies and get more people into digital jobs. In March this year, the European Commission launched the Grand Coalition for Digital Jobs, focusing exactly on closing the gaps between expected vacancies and the supply of skilled candidates. The Commission welcomes the pledge of Telecenter Europe to support this Grand Coalition in going local. Your support to the formation of local coalitions in various European countries will be very important. We should not forget that nearly all economic sectors increasingly depend on employing people with basic and mid-level ICT skills. By 2015, 90% of all jobs are expected to require at least basic ICT skills. Telecenters are making an important contribution to meeting this challenge through their digital literacy and e-skills training programs. The EU has been trying to boost digital training through funding under the European Social Fund, but also by building an e-competence framework for the certification of digital skills. We have also improved the monitoring and anticipation of skills needs through the European Vacancy Monitor and the EU Skills Panorama. We now need to make sure that digital training opportunities are created all over Europe, particularly in areas where unemployment is high. Digital training can be an important component of youth guarantee schemes, which the Commission is urging all Member States to implement. I would therefore like to make a special appeal to those of you who work with young people in Europe and around the world. Your knowledge on how to motivate young people, how to get them interested in ICT skills and professions, how to help them build digital skills and find work opportunities with these skills, all this expertise is very valuable for us. Investing in young people is the best investment we can make. We cannot get out of our economic crisis without giving young people the possibility to develop their skills and put them to productive use. The recovery must be based on employment. Unemployed people must again get a chance to create economic value rather than being stuck without any prospects. Over 26 million people are unemployed in Europe, and over 14 million people between 15 and 29 are neither in employment, education or training. We must find ways of creating more work opportunities for these people, and we must invest in their skills. The European Commission is mobilizing member states, business and all other relevant stakeholders to deal with this critical issue. At local level, telecentres are already training and certifying digital skills and collaborating with public employment services and digital employers in a number of member states. We therefore count on the engagement of telecentres in the implementation of the Youth Guarantee and in helping multiply digital skills and jobs across Europe. Thank you very much.
Bueno, vamos, this part, I'm going to say it in Spanish. La siguiente, bueno, en esta primera parte de la
In this first part of the session, we've been looking back to the history of telecentres, and now we would like to look at the present, and we're going to assess Spark, the success of this event. This event is based on the connections and agreements you've reached during these 2 days, and we will also analyze the future. We will consider the challenges the telecentres will have to face in the future, and for that I would like to invite Miguel Raimilla, Executive Director of Telecenter.org, Juan Francisco Delgado, the President of the Fernando de los Ríos Consortium, Gabriel Rizola, the Director of Telecenter Europe, and Catalina Escobar, Director and Co-founder of Macaya, and member of the Telecenter.org Foundation.
Bueno, estamos en la parte final ya.
So we are reaching the final part of these 2 days of very intense work and cooperation. And a few minutes ago, I was in the audience listening the words of the founding fathers of the Telecenter.org Foundation, and this made me think of the different directions and itineraries that are being developed in the different regional networks. There was the intention of trying to discover what these technologies could mean or imply in different contexts, and as we've been saying during these 2 days, we are aware of the fact that we are a community, a global community, very dynamic one and very active with different dimensions. The idea of the organization of this event was also wanted to reinforce our understanding of the movement and to come closer so that we can find new elements that will allow us to advance towards the future. I am totally convinced that the telecenter networks will become a distribution channel for services, and the most efficient one in the world. In this event, we wanted to discuss 3 main pillars: people, innovation, and sustainability. And I would like to share and know a little bit of what are your opinions, the opinions of my colleagues and their impressions, part of the organizing committee, so to see more or less what we've been doing. This has also been an experimentation in terms of collective work and coordination among us, and therefore I would like you to comment on these things. We can start with Juan Francisco. What do you think about these 2 days? What do you think about the future? Where should we continue working for the future? Well, during these 2 different days, there have been so many things that I wasn't able to be at every single meeting. I attended many sessions, but I couldn't visit them all. From what I've seen, I'd like to highlight the dynamism and lively implication, the commitment and cooperation that Spark has been able to generate within Spark. Not only the different announcements, development of partnerships that have been signed and that we will detail later on, but also in the small spaces that we've had in the hub. Those were very impressive, a lot of activity, a lot of dedication. And I was talking about this with our colleagues from the organization, and we were saying that in the next Spark we should have a lot of hub, or perhaps only hub, because most of the activities were developed in the hub, and most of the involvement too. Later on, I think the speeches and presentations were of extraordinary quality, and they've also had an important impact. And coming back to your question, we've achieved the first challenge we had. We wanted telecenters to get out of the world of telecenters. So we've managed for the first time in history, and I would like to highlight this because we've measured this. It's the first time that our networks have been a trending topic in Twitter 2 days in a row, and sometimes with the Wi-Fi not working. And we've been a trending topic. Today, we've even become the third trend in Spain, a country where 60% of network users use social networks, social media. So a country where social media are used quite a lot, and the success of being the third is really an important thing. We've been about to do an international jump, but we haven't really managed that in the end. Many people are talking about us, and also, you know, many media who didn't come here originally because they thought it was just another meeting. They've started asking about us because they've seen that we were a trending topic, and therefore they wanted to know who the telecenters are, what they do, and so on. So we created something else. We've gone beyond the family of telecenters, and that was the first and most important challenge we were facing. I think we have a lot more to do, but for me it's already an important progress. People are talking about that, about us. Another second challenge would be the future of telecenters that should be linked to the model of sustainability. And this is also very much linked, and this has been mentioned by the visionaries of the telecenter movements. This is very much linked to social innovation. So telecenters are linked to innovation, and this also has to be linked to sustainability for us to become an innovation of sustainability for the technological sector, who can, you know, use us as a lab where they can develop inclusive technology for everybody, where costs will also go in line with the social use of technology. And the third element, well, I would go on talking for a longer time, but I don't want to take much more time. But I would like to mention participation, because behind all this, we've seen incredible human stories in MENA, in Asia Pacific, in Europe, in Latin America. We've seen very impressive stories. We've brought some of them to Spark, but we've really heard of some stories that really made us be totally amazed. And well, there was in a round table by Guadalinfo, a woman who's become the chair of an association, the president of an association of businessmen, and she had been a a lady who had to fight a lot of things. And it has been an extraordinary opportunity for us to share many different topics and experiences here in Granada, a wonderful city. I'd like to thank my team and also the organization. I'd like to thank the consortium, Fernando de los Rios, especially Ana Agudo, who's been coordinating all this. And I would like to ask you to give her a round of applause for her work.
Anna, stand up so that they can see you. And now Cristina Vera as well, who does not like to be named, but she has been working hard with Vida, Alberto Donaire, Javi, everyone. Alberto Corpas, Lucía, Antonio Linares. Everybody in the consortium that have proved that they are great, and it makes it difficult for them to match them. Thank you for trusting us. And thanks Tim as well. This started as a breakfast with Richard Fuchs in Seville, and see what we've done. Miguel, in the other event we had in the Dynamisers meeting, he said, would you be ready to do this? In January last year. And in Barcelona in February, the foundation said, let's go. We've had many meetings and many headaches, but we're here. Thanks for trusting us. It's been a great experience. You are, of course, in charge of this, and a round of applause for you as well. Gabriel, we've had many conversations on how to analyze the experience of the European network and how to export it to other places in the world. There are always spaces where new learning can be developed. What are the main elements that are considered as experiences that are positive or that could be integrated in the network for Europe? In my opinion, it was a very important experience. I was involved in the program, and I see that the topics that we're dealing with in Europe are also relevant in other parts of the world. For instance, the session we had this morning on capacity building, on strengthening capabilities, and discovering that in Mexico, for instance, there are similar processes going on. There was also a session on the impact assessment, and we can see the contribution of telecenters to social and economic development, so that we can have a voice in this regard and to be able to reach others. And we found that this topic was being especially critical in Brazil. We spoke about young people and employment and entrepreneurship, etc. And we learned about experiences from the Arab countries. We developed the topic of entrepreneurship in the ITU and telecenters.org, which is called Youth Unemployment, and is dealing with this topic in particular, and this did not start in Europe. There are important differences depending on the continent we're speaking about, and there are also mainstreaming aspects that we have to deal with. This event is good to disseminate, and it's also an opportunity to be known outside, because we're tired of explaining what telecenters are to people who are not familiar with it. But it is true that you heard the speech by Commissioner Andor for Employment and Social Affairs of the European Union, that for the second time in a public speech he speaks about the importance of the role of telecenters. The other one was in the annual summit organized by Telecenter Europe last October last year. And he spoke about how telecenters could help. In Europe, it's very important to build new things within this environment in which the various member states have or adopt their own options, and we work a lot in this field, and we have learned that we're going to develop a way. It's not a lobby in itself, but to influence and to place telecenters and these telecenters on the map. There's a workshop organized by the European Union here to discuss about the impact assessment on telecenters. And this is something that other networks can benefit from. So we have to work a lot along these two lines. The strengthening of the global community of telecenters. We don't know a lot about what happens in other regions, and this happens every 2 years, so we have to do something right now so that we are known abroad. We can be known that we can know that there are other industries that can benefit from the work of telecenters. And of course the social sector, which is our environment, which is naturally our environment. Catalina, in the previous session, asked panelists if there was a spark, if there was something related to the founders of the movement. We are part of this challenge. What happened? In your case, you have been in this movement for a long time. Are we developing towards a future which is much more promising for telecenters? What do you think? I saw many things, and there was spark in many times, in many occasions. The first one being, you said that it is something that has that it becomes a network of people, and people are gathered around technology. Maybe what we have to realize is that the movement used to be more technocentrist, and now is more a movement of people, of relations, of networks, of what we can do, what unites us rather than separates us. I believe there's a strong connection between this ethnocentrism, and we are more into innovation now. We were more worried about the network, the devices, the cable, etc. And there were no discussions on this, and I'm very happy to hear this, because we've gotten past beyond that. And of course, leadership, local leadership in any telecenter or access center, the person that makes this initiative accessible are the local initiatives. So it is good to acknowledge the work of people that have been developing these initiatives. The initiatives of telecenters were more top-down, used to be more top-down, more emphasis on development towards communities. But now we have an emerging bottom-up movement that emerges and has an impact. This was very interesting, and this was seen in all cases. For instance, concerning disabilities, I was astonished at what has been achieved. Obviously, there's not a model for telecenters. And models will be successful depending on the context, depending on the allies, on various things. And this takes us to the following situation. What matters are really people and the place of encounter. Whatever happens from the human perspective. And to finish with this, the technology is ephemeral and just ephemeral, and it's not, does not last for long. It changes a lot, and we have to realize that. So no matter what the device is, what matters is what people do with these devices, and the fact that it is something that transforms the lives of people, and that technology is contextual. Each element will have the pros and cons. So what happened in the last few years, and that was something that was seen in Spark here, opens the way for a new future, a more promising future and bright future. So the focus has to be, as I said, on people. It is essential because human beings are actors of their own development. So it is a very positive message. Thanks for hosting this wonderful space. Thank you. Congratulations. I think that you had a wonderful audience. That was a varied one. I'd like to thank the three of you because you are representatives of this new cycle, this new process, this new natural process. Things have to change and be renewed. And hopefully in some more time we will have more leaders, Francisco, Gabriel, Catalina, that will come, new ones that will come from other countries and thinking about it in a completely different way on telecenters. I think that this is part of the challenge to combine our experience to obtain what we are aiming at. And we want to be closing with this, what has been something relevant in the last few days. This is like a short break in our work, which is to continue to develop solutions for our communities. So tomorrow we will come back to real work. We will come back to change the world again. And thank you all for coming and participating. I congratulate you on your leadership. So we finally closed the official program of Spark. We do have workshops this evening. Hopefully you will be joining them. Thank you for coming to Granada. Thank you for watching us through the internet from many countries. We hoped you learned a lot, and hopefully you will have many connections in this networking you have been achieving here. Do not leave the spark go down. Thank you very much. See you soon. Bye.